Massive protests have erupted on the streets of Belarus. Betrayal at the highest level of power is sending shockwaves through the region, and a mutiny has begun that could reshape Eastern Europe as we know it. What really happened between Putin and Lukashenko, and why are the streets exploding with anger? The story unfolding in Belarus is more than just another chapter in the long history of protests and power struggles. It is an uprising that reveals the fragile nature of authoritarian rule, the cracks in alliances that once seemed unbreakable, and the determination of a people who have decided they can no longer stay silent. Thousands of people have poured into the streets of Minsk and other major cities. They wave flags, chant for freedom, and defy heavily armed security forces who try to push them back. The streets are filled with the sounds of drums, chants, and sirens. Chants and sirens. Riot police block intersections, water cannons move into place, and yet the protesters continue to gather in larger and larger numbers. It is a visible, undeniable challenge to the system that has ruled Belarus for decades. If we think of this story as an exterior view, we see the raw physical confrontation between the people and the state. On one side, ordinary citizens, students, workers, parents, and even pensioners united in their call for change. On the other side, armored vehicles, shields, batons, and tear gas canisters, all symbols of a government desperate to keep control. This exterior scene is the performance the world sees in videos and images shared online. It is loud, it is chaotic, and it is impossible to ignore. Yet behind those dramatic street scenes lies a quieter, interior struggle. Inside the government offices, in meetings that stretch late into the night, the atmosphere is filled with fear and uncertainty. Lukashenko, who once seemed untouchable, is now confronted with the collapse of his authority. His ministers whisper among themselves, wondering how long their leader can hold on. Some remain loyal out of fear, while others quietly consider whether it is time to step away before the system crumbles completely. And beyond the walls of government, in Moscow, Putin makes his calculations. For decades, Lukashenko could count on Russian backing whenever the West criticized or threatened sanctions. But now, in this crucial moment, Putin hesitates. He chooses not to send troops, not to give full-throated support, and in doing so, he delivers the ultimate betrayal to a man who once relied on him as a lifeline. The performance of the key figures in this crisis is being judged not just in Belarus, but across the world. Lukashenko's performance is faltering. He appears on television shouting about conspiracies, blaming foreign enemies, and insisting that the protests are nothing more than chaos stirred up from outside. But his words sound hollow, his gestures reveal desperation, and his authority no longer inspires the fear it once did. For the Belarusian people, his performance is that of a ruler who has lost touch with reality, clinging to power while his country demands something new. Putin's performance, by contrast, is far colder. Rather than dramatic speeches, his betrayal is delivered through silence. He waits, he watches, and he chooses not to act. It is a performance of strategy, a decision to protect Russia's own interests rather than risk them for an ally who appears doomed. Around the world, analysts watch and interpret his moves, noting that Russia's reputation as a loyal supporter of its allies has been damaged. And then there is the performance of the Belarusian people themselves. Their courage, their resilience, and their refusal to be silenced become the most powerful performance of all. Even in the face of arrests, beatings, and threats, they continue to fill the streets, their voices growing louder each day. When we consider safety, we find that it is perhaps the most fragile part of the entire crisis. The government tries to claim that order is being maintained, that security forces are protecting citizens from chaos, but the reality is very different. Tear gas clouds drift over city squares, stun grenades explode in the night, and armored vehicles rumble through neighborhoods. These are the so-called safety measures of Lukashenko's system, but instead of making people feel safe, they only deepen the sense of fear. Families worry about their loved ones every time they leave the house. Protesters know they risk arrest, or worse, when they join the demonstrations. Even the police and soldiers themselves are not safe from doubt and division. Some begin to question why they are defending a leader who no longer commands respect. The true safety of Belarus, the real protection of its people, cannot be found in batons or riot shields. It depends on whether the country can find a peaceful path forward, and at this moment, that path remains uncertain. This uprising stands out from others because of its unique elements. It is not simply a protest against an unpopular law or a demand for reform. It is a full-scale mutiny against decades of authoritarian rule, combined with a dramatic betrayal by a supposed ally. For years, Belarus has been tied closely to Russia, its economy and security dependent on Moscow's support. Yet when the crisis erupted, Putin chose distance over loyalty. This betrayal exposes the limits of Russia's influence and highlights the courage of the Belarusian people in confronting not only their own government, but also the shadow of their powerful neighbor. Unlike earlier protests that faded under repression, this mutiny is different. It is fueled by a new generation connected through social media, inspired by other movements across the world, and determined to see their struggle through. The unique selling point of this uprising is that it represents a turning point, not just for Belarus, but for the entire region. But every turning point comes with a price, and in Belarus, the cost is already high. The people pay first, with their fear, with their suffering, and in some cases with their lives. Families are torn apart when loved ones are detained. Businesses close as instability spreads. The economy, already fragile, takes hit after hit as sanctions loom and foreign investors pull back. Inflation rises, jobs are lost, and uncertainty becomes the daily reality. Politically, the price may be Lukashenko's eventual fall, but that fall will not come without turmoil. For Putin, the price of betrayal is different, but no less significant. By abandoning Lukashenko, he sends a signal to all of Russia's allies that loyalty is conditional, that support may vanish when it is needed most. Leaders in other post-Soviet states are watching closely, wondering if they too could be left exposed in a moment of crisis. The price then is not only Belarus's immediate suffering, but also a long-term shift in trust and stability across the region. As the story continues, the conclusion remains uncertain. Will the protests succeed in forcing change, or will the government double down on repression until the streets are silenced? Will Lukashenko cling to power with the help of whatever remains of his security forces, or will he eventually be forced to step aside? Will Putin quietly install a new leader who serves Russian interests, or will Belarus carve out a path of independence, closer to Europe and further from Moscow? These are the questions that will shape the future not only of Belarus, but of Eastern Europe as a whole. What we can say for certain is that this moment is a turning point. The eruption of protests in Belarus, combined with the betrayal of Lukashenko by Putin, is not just another story of unrest. It is a sign of change, a warning of instability, and perhaps a glimpse of a future where old alliances no longer hold the same power they once did. The courage of the Belarusian people stands as a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming force, voices demanding freedom can rise and be heard. The silence of Putin and the faltering of Lukashenko reveal that no leader, no matter how strong they appear, can escape the consequences of betrayal and weakness. Thank you for staying with me through this detailed breakdown. If you found this analysis insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Future X USA for more deep dives into the world's most important stories. This is not the end of the Belarus story. It is only the beginning of a chapter that could redefine the future of Eastern Europe.